CNN's Sanjay Gupta joining us this morning. Look, bear with us if you're outside of Atlanta or Georgia right now, because we're going to specifically talk about some stuff going on here. But our story could very well be your story here over the next couple of weeks and next couple of months, right? Morning, Sanjay.
Hey, Bert, thanks for having me. Or Mr. Weiss, as you've now asked me to call you.
Oh, yeah. It was Sir Weiss, but that's fine.
Sorry, yes.
I mean, when we are talking about important things like coronavirus, it's only fitting to refer to him as Mr. Weiss.
Yes.
Right.
So here you have, in Atlanta right now, you have an entire school district that had one teacher, that had contact with about 25 different students. And the district said, you know what? Let's just play it safe. All the schools, you guys are off today. Yeah. I think that's probably the safe play, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, these are tough decisions, and it's I don't think anyone can take the decision lightly. I apologize in the background. I'm on the HLN studio, so you hear Robin Mead shouting in the background there.
Tell her to keep it down. We're trying to do a radio show.
Apologies. But I think that the idea that you're going to pull kids out of school and then disinfect these schools, make sure they're clean, is probably the better sense of judgment here. But it's a tough call. I mean, pulling kids out of school means parents stay home from work. Some of these kids, they really count on not just the school, but the meals that come with the school and all that. So, tough decision. But as you asked, probably the right decision here, because clearly someone was infected. Clearly someone had a lot of contact, and you want to try and break that cycle of transmission.
If you had to predict, I would say that this is going to last more than one day, right? Wouldn't the school district come back and say, okay, maybe this is 2, 3, 4 days?
It could be just in terms of the disinfecting protocols alone. I mean, I imagine they want to get it done as quickly as possible. But given that they made the call in the first place, and so their posture is, we're erring very much on the side of safety here. We realize that there's no perfect answer here, but given that we're erring on the side of safety, I think you're right. It probably would take at least a couple days.
Sanjay, I think it's probably smart to go over some of the stuff you gave us last time also, because now that it's hitting close to home. I felt a little cavalier a couple of weeks ago, but now it's in my backyard. Now I'm like, okay, maybe I should listen just a little more intently. The symptoms. What separates a cold or the flu from the coronavirus?
It can be hard to tell the difference between the two. One of the things that a lot of the people in China who did some of the largest studies they focused on was that with the coronavirus, it does tend to more likely affect the lower part of your respiratory system more than the upper respiratory. And so what that means for the average person is that if this is predominantly a runny nose you're dealing with, or even a sore throat, that may be more likely to be flu or rhinovirus / common cold. If it's more lower respiratory difficulty breathing, losing your breath, especially when you go up a flight of stairs, things like that seem out of proportion, that could be flu, but possibly coronavirus. What's going to happen in a situation where you have symptoms, what most medical professionals will do is still test you for the flu first, because that is still more likely to be the scenario versus coronavirus. If that test comes back negative and you truly do have symptoms, that point you may be triggered for a coronavirus test.
So many questions, and I know you're on not a lot of time. So if you have the symptoms, we're all confused. Are you supposed to self-quarantine? Are you supposed to go to an urgent care? Are you supposed to go to an emergency room, or do you just keep it to yourself? And how do you know if you have it or not?
Yeah, so if you have symptoms, I mean, I think, look, even aside from this recent, outbreak of coronavirus, I think the guidance, the wisdom has always been, if you can, to stay home, because you don't want to spread it to others. And again, I say that fully realizing that a lot of people will hear that and say, but I don't really have that luxury. You got 53 million people in this country who are living, very close to minimum wage, and day off is a tough thing to ask of them. It's part of the reason I think the president was talking yesterday about trying to provide some relief to hourly workers who may be asked to stay home during the midst of this outbreak. But so I think that's always the guidance. If there are minimal symptoms, then you may want to just stay home, isolate yourself. If you feel like you do need to go to the doctor and get tested because the symptoms are worse, you should call ahead, just because they may want to isolate you upon your arrival at the clinic or the emergency room or wherever you go, so you don't infect others, or you yourself get exposed to someone who's infected. But that the vast majority of people, I think, who do come in contact with this virus, and we don't really know the numbers because we haven't tested that completely in this country, will have minimal symptoms, if any symptoms at all, 80% of people. But especially for elderly people, if they're developing the symptoms, people who have pre-existing conditions like heart disease, diabetes, lung disease, and hypertension in particular, I think the trigger for them going to get tested should be lower.
Sanjay, do you advise to stay away from large crowds? Are you advising to not go to the gym nearly as much? Are you advising, like my girlfriend was going to take her 5-year-old to one of those Gymboree type places today? Where should we go? Where are we safe? And what should we stay away from?
Well, I think that it depends on who we are, who the person is. I think, for young, healthy people, I think the likelihood of becoming ill from this is still pretty low. I wouldn't say that the likelihood of being exposed to this is still low, because I think this is circulating. But the idea that young, healthy people will become sick from this is thankfully low, and kids seem to be pretty protected from this. There are certain places that I think are going to be less hygienic than other places, and I think that's going to be a judgment call. But for older people, and I talk to my parents every day down in Florida. They're in their late 70s now. And, the guidance for them is, I don't want to take the joy out of your life, but for the next few weeks, I think you should stay in as much as possible, avoid large gatherings. And, there's a few reasons why. I mean, even if you don't get sick at one of these things, right, even if you don't feel like you had any problem whatsoever, let's say you do come in contact with someone who subsequently tests positive. It is quite possible that because of that, you may now find yourself in a 14-day quarantine situation. So you have to think about not just the medical aspects of this, but the social disruption as well. So everyone's going to have their own bar. There's certain things I have to do. I have to go out and work and do my things. But I do try and minimize my own exposure to large gatherings as well, as much as possible. But for my parents, I think it's critically important.
All right, I think that's all the time we have for Sanjay. If people wanted to go to one place, very quickly, one place to get updated information, where would they go online each and every hour, each and every day? Well,
the task force, the coronavirus.gov task force now has their website up and running. It's been a while coming. I obviously, have you come check out our stuff on CNN.com and a podcast that I have. But as far as coronavirus.gov, they do have these I think pretty good and well explained guidance for how to protect yourself in your home, at your place of work, at schools, and at establishments like restaurants, how you should best protect yourself. And I think those things are worth paying attention to. Headline for me is that, look, even for you, Bert, even for me, I think most of us are likely to be okay, not really get sick from this, but we do have to think of ourselves as potential carriers of this virus and be careful, especially when we're interacting with vulnerable people, so that we don't unintentionally expose somebody to the virus.
Sanjay,
washing our hands, all that sort of stuff.
Can't thank you enough for your time. Go do your little TV show now.
You got it, Mr. White.
All right, Sanjay, thank you. I really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, of course.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. All right, that's Sanjay Gupta from CNN. There it is right there, man. I think we pretty much covered a whole bunch of ground right there.
And I'm glad he covered that at the end, too, because I think it's worth mentioning one more time. Just because you are young and healthy doesn't mean you shouldn't still take the necessary precautions and be responsible in case you come in contact with somebody who has a compromised immune system. So just do the right thing for everybody.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. If you want to refer back to that later on today, we will post that. If there's somebody in your life that is freaking out about coronavirus, we will have that posted quickly. Send them to thebertshow.com.
The Bert Show.